and gentlemen, welcome to the Nutrition Hero Podcast. Igniting both the art and the science of functional medicine. Here's your host, Dr. Brad Watts.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Nutrition Hero Podcast. I'm Dr. Brad Watts. Thank you for joining me here today. I have to say thank you, by the way, to all of the new subscribers out there. Thank you for joining the Nutrition Hero family and for participating. We appreciate you. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subscribes on YouTube. Glad to have you along the way. Obviously, we want to bring this message of health and healing and the viewpoint functional medicine, clinical nutrition into the marketplace to as many people as we can. And the more of you that participate, the more that happens. And it's pretty great. It's fun to see how we've grown over the last year. It's also fun to see the impact that we're having on people's lives, and that's you. So part of my job, most of my job at the Nutrition Hero Podcast is highlighting all of the different things in the functional medicine industry that you are doing that are changing people's lives. And I think that's the most fun that I have with this podcast is not just having a monologue, not just telling you what I know, what I've found, etc., but what all of you are doing in the marketplace right now to absolutely flip healthcare on its head. And so that's pretty exciting. Along those lines today, we're going to talk about some of the art in functional medicine, some of the things that I think take a little finesse, and I don't know if you call them like secondary skills. Like everybody needs to know biochemistry and nutrition and how magnesium works, that type of stuff. But there's an art to functional medicine that when you apply it the right way, man, it just changes the patient experience and the level of impact that you can have on somebody. It absolutely changes it. So there's an art to it. And art is something that for many people is hard to define, especially if you have a consistent scientific viewpoint on things. Art is something that I want to see if we can put words to today to describe from other industries what this art might look like. So the reason that I'm doing this podcast today is I was recently on vacation, and every year my family and I, we take a road trip to northern Wisconsin. And it's like the Northwoods, pine needles, huge pine trees, all the stuff, right? And so I'm sitting on the dock one morning, and this is just probably 3 or 4 days ago now, sitting on the dock one morning, and the water is glass, and it's stinking cold. It's August in Wisconsin, and northern Wisconsin, and I think it was like 52 degrees one morning. The sun's coming up and the water's hotter than the air, so there's a fog over the lake, and I'm just sitting there, and it's quiet as the sun's coming up, and it's something that I like to do, just being thankful for the adventure that I'm on with my wife and my family, being thankful for just the platforms and the ability to impact people and change their lives, inspire change that I've been given. And it's stuff that I'm thankful for. So I like to sit out, and you're looking at this big lake, and it makes you feel really small, and it's pretty awesome, right? So the sun's coming up behind me because we're sitting on the east side of the lake, and the wind's blowing just a little breeze across the lake at us. And all of a sudden, I get this idea. I think I should record a podcast from the dock. How cool is that? I thought it was such a great experience. I was like, I got to do this. I'm gonna let people in on this experience. And so I bust out the phone, and obviously I don't have all of the equipment that I have here in the podcast lab sitting out on a dock, but it would have been a cool experience. So I start recording, and I get about 30 seconds in, and like chaos ensues around me. It's early in the morning. I'm the only one there. Right, but there is a nest of eagles, bald eagles, on the edge of where this house is on the lake, and this eagle's nest, they start flapping and screaming. I don't know if you've ever heard an eagle scream, But now imagine 3 baby eagles and 2 adult eagles all screaming at the same time. It was like, it's almost deafening. That, like, right in your ear. And the pine tree's not that tall, maybe 30 feet tall at the most, right? And their nest is right at the top of it. And so I'm sitting, I don't know, 20 yards away. And so big eagle, bald eagle comes out, and they're fishing right off of the dock where I'm sitting. And so they're diving down, grabbing fish, taking it back to the nest, right? And these are just little fish. But it got so loud that I couldn't record the podcast. And I was just sitting there watching these bald eagles. I know this sounds cliche and almost ridiculous. But I'm sitting there watching these bald eagles fish and take fish back up into the nest and destroy the fish, right? And feed it to these little baby eagles. And so I'm sitting there watching this happen. And the skill with which these eagles were able to capture a fish out of the water, take it back without dropping it, right? It was just amazing. It was amazing. And so the eagles, they start to calm down. This is all in one day, okay? All in one, 30-minute window as I'm sitting out here on this dock. And the eagles, they got enough fish, right? And they put it all up in the nest, and they're feeding all these little baby eagles, etc. And I'm sitting here watching this like, dude, I'm like the only person right now on this whole lake, maybe in the state of Wisconsin right now, sitting here watching something this amazing at this hour of the day. Right? So I got my blanket on, I'm freezing, just watching this happen. Now, I'm quiet, wearing a green blanket, right? It's like a kind of like a camo green color, sitting on this dock. And I look over to my right because I hear splashing in the water. And right below this tree where the eagles are, you guys, this doesn't even sound real now that I'm like listening to myself replay this to you. This doesn't even sound real. All right. Now, underneath this tree comes a baby deer with spots on it still, so a little fawn, and a mama, and they come out into the water, and they're splashing around, and the water is like knee deep for 100 yards from the shore, right? Not very deep at all. And so they're splashing around in the water, and more deer come in, and more, like they don't stop. It's like the deer parade just showed up. And I'm sitting in this blanket trying not to move, and I captured some video of what was happening here, and it was it was crazy. It was crazy, right? And so they're right underneath the eagle nest, and so the eagles calm down, and then the deer show up, and I'm like, how am I supposed to record a podcast? How am I supposed to record a podcast when all this stuff is going on? So I put the phone down, and I'm watching these deer play, and they're drinking the water out of the lake, etc. But they're also like playing, and there's something to that. It was like I had goosebumps sitting there, and so the deer kind of worked their way away from me, and none of them saw me because I'm sitting in this blanket, trying not to move, and they worked their way up the shoreline away from me, and just splashing around, and so I found out it's like their daily thing, every day at the same time. That group of deer, like a dozen of them, show up, and they follow the same trail, very habitual. So anyway, so I go inside after they leave, and I'm like all excited to tell everybody. And of course, a family in there is like, oh yeah, we've been sitting here watching watching these deer. They were here yesterday too. And so just amazing experience, right? And I say all of this because it's not normal for me. Like, I live in Minnesota. I live right next to one of the big lakes in Minnesota, but it's not the same. It's very metropolitan where I live. And being out in the North Woods in Wisconsin, it was an interesting escape that we do once a year for a week. It's been family tradition, something that we've built. And so between the eagles and the deer and just the experience of being out like on a silent lake and hearing what the wind sounds like as it whips over the water, there's something to that. There's like an art in that creation that was inspiring, number one, but it also makes me want to go back, number two. right? It makes me want to go back. It makes me want to go back for the experience of what else could I see, what else could I learn, what else could I get exposed to that I would have never come across before. Right? I almost stayed in bed that morning. I was tired, dog tired, almost stayed in bed. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to get out, I'm going to go record a podcast, which didn't happen, and just bring that experience in. So that was really cool. And, later on in the week, I saw an eagle haul up a huge carp onto the shore. And the eagle, these things are massive. They're humongous. They sit, with their head just sitting on the ground, on their feet, sitting on their feet, but they're sitting on the ground. Their head height is just below, my waist. These are huge birds. So this bird dragged up a carp, it's the size of a small dog, onto the shoreline, just destroyed it. Another eagle flies in, tries to steal the carp, and they're fighting in the air about 10 feet off the ground until the dominant one takes over. And it's just an amazing experience. This is all happening 20 yards away from the cabin that we're staying in. So just standing there watching and recording this stuff. It was amazing. So anyway, this experience, it's like an art to it that continuously draws me back. And this experience is something that I've seen in healthcare, in functional medicine. I've seen it, but it's hard to put words to unless you're sitting there. Because I just told you about the eagles and the baby eagles and the deer and sitting in this blanket and the wind and it's cold out. And you get the idea of it, but without the experience of it, it's just another story. It doesn't even sound real. It sounds like I made it up because there are too many wild animals in a very short period of time in a very controlled environment. I'm sitting at a cabin, right? And it's the same thing in functional medicine, I find, is that the stories are wild. The stories are wild. People losing 25 pounds in 4 or 5 days. Cognitive decline. I looked yesterday. And doctors probably listening to this, but I looked yesterday at an MRI, and this is volumetric MRI imaging for cognitive decline cases, and the changes that I saw from pre to post, the volume of neurologic tissue that was restored to this patient in a relatively short period of time was astounding. I told the doctor to call the MRI clinic again and make sure they had the right patient, because while the structures in the MRI look the same from test to test, I have never seen volumetric changes to the extent that this doctor is experiencing. And it's you want a fist pump, right? You want to slow clap for the doctor. But there's something there that if you just share the raw data in functional medicine, it's almost unbelievable, because the experience that everybody else is living is so far removed that it sounds like you're making it up. It absolutely sounds like you're making it up. From weight loss to volumetric changes to blood sugar changes. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's one of those things that a scientist can't accurately describe, because the reality is so far away from people's experiences in general that there's no, the bridge, the gap to bridge is too far. It's far too far. And so there's an art in functional medicine that allows you to display what functional medicine and the human body, really the electricity, the human spirit in the body, is capable of. There's an art to describing that allows people to, one, latch onto it, and two, do something with it. Do something with it. That's the cool part. And so this art in functional medicine is really what I want to talk about today. The art in functional medicine is the ability to describe something to somebody that is so foreign to them that they can see themselves in that position. It's like reverse empathy, right? It's reverse empathy. We did a podcast on empathy a few weeks back, I think. And empathy is a platform that you need to have in order to help people with functional medicine. Reverse empathy is being able to apply the art that functional medicine requires in order to get people to participate consistently long enough that results show up. That's the art in functional medicine. So one of the things that stands in the way of people developing this skill set in the art of functional medicine to be able to apply functional medicine and actually get results with people is this idea that people are constantly looking for comfort. And art always takes something that irritates you, something that's uncomfortable, right? In order for me to go and watch the art of nature, right, on this random Tuesday in northern Wisconsin, in order for me to go and watch that art, I had to get uncomfortable. It's really cold out. Really cold. In order for me to participate in that and like watch the art show that was happening in front of me, I had to be willing to be sitting 20 yards from some fighting eagles, screaming. That's amazing, okay? But there's this thing where people are always looking for comfort. That's why it's always easier for somebody to get fat than it is for them to get thin. It's easier for somebody to become a diabetic than for them to reverse diabetes, because people are always looking for comfort. Think about the last time you went on vacation. Were you like, yeah, I'm gonna go vacation, in a gym with a squat rack, and I'm only gonna be eating organic food, and it's gonna be amazing. Yes, yeah, it cost me $10,000. All right, I'm gonna be gone for a week, but I'm gonna go do that. No, you go on vacation, and when you go on vacation, you devolve usually because it's about comfort, and that's the thing. So, apologize, by the way, if you can hear this massive thunderstorm going on right in front of me here, but you're going to get a little background noise as well. But looking at this, people are built for production, but our culture is built for comfort. Part of the art in functional medicine is getting people over that comfort, introducing to them function, production, doing something, building something. People's lifestyles cause them to devolve. That right there is going to set somebody on fire, and they're going to understand that, and they're going to go and change their community now because they're looking at people devolving in front of them because they've fallen in love with comfort. Like, what do you do after a long, hard day of work? Do you go home and continue to work? Certain percent of you just said, yeah, that's what I do. Or do you go home and you bust out the stogies and the scotch and you're like, all right, I just need a good 6 hours every day in order to unwind here. Okay, like, there's a time and place, but when the time and place becomes here and now all the time, you're in trouble. You're devolving, participating with comfort, right? The art in functional medicine is communicating with that person and figuring out how to get them off of the comfort train into the production train. That's the important part, right? So let's see if we can put some more words to this. Part of the art in functional medicine is inspiring people to go after something other than the comfort they're in. And most doctors use the future pain to avoid your current comfort, whatever that might be. Future pain to trump current comfort. Future pain is a powerful motivator, but if they stay in that avoidance of future pain, it's only going to take them so far down the road toward healing. It's just one thing I've found. If future pain is your only ability to motivate, it's part of the art of functional medicine, okay? But if future pain is the only art you have, you're going to be able to help about 60% of the patients that you should be able to, okay? You're leaving some patients, stuck in their own lifestyle. You're not helping some patients. Some patients are going to have their feet cut off, their eyesight go dim, a heart attack, a stroke, whatever it might be, because your only ability is to motivate based off of future pain. Okay? That sounds super harsh. And it is super harsh. But you know what's even worse than that? Patients that you have the ability to help that no longer have feet. Right? And I'm saying this from personal experience because I've seen this in my own practice. Okay? I've seen it. And it hurts. It's what keeps me up at night. Right? It's what keeps me up at night when you think about stuff like this. Okay, this is what keeps me up at night, is if there's somebody that got their foot cut off that I know I could have helped them, but my artistic skill in functional medicine wasn't strong enough to bridge the gap between the results I know are possible and the reality the patient was experiencing. Sometimes the threat of future pain, sometimes it's not enough, right? So it requires you to develop, like in a hierarchy of functional medicine artistic skills, threat of future pain is at the bottom. Anybody can say, well, yeah, but it's going to be worse in 3 years. Anybody can say, well, yeah, if you don't get this figured out, you might get your foot cut off. Anybody can say that. That takes almost no artistic ability. It takes the ability to have confrontation with people. Okay? And even the largest JA, well, for those of you that know what JA means, even the largest JA in functional medicine can scare people into changes, right? There's hardly any art available in that, right? That's at a very base level. We start moving our way up. Really, what the art of functional medicine looks like is leadership. And if our leadership skill is based on fear and fear tactics, that doesn't say a lot about our ability to lead and inspire. It doesn't say a lot. Right? When we talk about leadership, like there's a video series that was out recently, Michael Jordan's, called The Last Dance. And I'm sure a bunch of people watched it. I watched all of them. Right? Michael Jordan's my wheelhouse. Like I was in middle school in the 90s. And so he was the man, right? And what you got to see in The Last Dance is something that you never got to see in the media. I didn't anyway. I just thought he was cool and had his jersey and that type of stuff, right? Jersey, shoes, cool, after it. I didn't see his leadership at the time because I wasn't looking for his leadership at the time. He was inspirational and influential, but I understand why. Watching The Last Dance showed a very wide scope, a really wide breadth of his leadership skills. There were some of his teammates that he would motivate based on fear, right? The same way that a lot of doctors try to motivate their patients based on fear. And it worked for some, but it didn't work for all. Right? You got to watch this video series, The Last Dance, okay? Make sure you check it out. I think it was on ESPN or Netflix. I don't know. You got to check it out, okay? But it was amazing because he can motivate some people based on fear. Some people it was motivated based off of their desire to achieve something. Right? Got that. Another spot that you saw them motivation show up was when he was motivating somebody like Dennis Rodman based off of giving them a cookie. What's giving them a cookie? Give them a little bit of respite from the demands that you're placing on them in a functional medicine program. Right? I've seen doctors use this to their advantage where the patient's like, well, doctor, when's the next time that I can go and binge Papa John's? Right? Give me that garlic butter. When can I go binge Papa John's again? And the some doctors never. Your feet are going to get cut off. Other doctors are like, oh, there's just a pushover. You can do that whenever you want, as long as it doesn't become a habit. Okay? I've been in that camp too. The patient bullies you into giving them what they want. But here's what the artistic functional medicine provider will often do. Okay? They'll say, oh, that's what you miss. That's the one thing that you're missing. Yeah, that's the one thing I'm missing. Okay. Get the patient healthy enough when they eat crappy food, they can tell a difference. Okay, that's when you let the patient, jump off the food wagon. Okay, that's when you let them go back to Papa John's and just destroy their gut, and they feel terrible, and their joints are on fire, and they have brain fog and diarrhea. That's when you let that happen, is when they feel good enough to know the difference between good and crappy food, right? That's a skill, an art. I call it give them a cookie, okay? In The Last Dance, with the Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls documentary, where they're following him around for the final season, The Last Dance, Michael Jordan knew when to give somebody a cookie, and he knew when to be just a dog to them, right? Just on their case and not let up. Like, there's a spot in the documentary where Dennis Rodman, right, classically a very colorful character, personality off the wall, right, and the guy is just a wild man. There came a point in the season where Michael Jordan sat down with the coach and was like, you got to let him go. You got to give him a weekend in Las Vegas, right? This guy, super colorful personality, known for shenanigans and people hanging out with people that are loaded with shenanigans. Michael Jordan's like, just let him go for the weekend. Give him 2 days and then let him get back into the gym. He knew when to give him a cookie, right? And he gave him enough a leash, okay, to say, go have fun. But also, the guy, he could have destroyed his entire season, his entire legacy, Dennis Rodman. He could have destroyed all of that, right? But what happened is he appreciated the leniency and experienced the boundaries of that leniency. There's something about the art in functional medicine when you know when to give a patient a cookie. Okay, so that's another thought here that I have for you. These thoughts, by the way, are from sitting on the dock. If I couldn't do the podcast, I just started putting the thoughts together for you. So, when to give a patient a cookie. Got to know that. It's part of the art in functional medicine. Okay. How about another one here? The ability to leave the unspoken things unspoken. Tact. I noticed that in this Michael Jordan documentary. Tact. Right? Very interesting to see how he would lead by example, and also lead by bullying, and also lead by giving a cookie, and also lead vocally through encouragement. The scope of this dude's leadership was broad, right? Absolutely broad. It was dynamic. It was amazing. One of the most powerful things that he could do is lead by example. There's something in functional medicine when somebody's sitting in front of you, a hurting mess. There's something about being able to sit up straight and smile and have like a clean body, clean physiology, a clean brain, right? And to be able to sit on the other side of the desk and say, it's going to be okay. Why? Because I'm the same age as you. I'm not sick. I know what it takes in order to move physiology in the right direction. I speak the language of health and healing, not just the language of death and disease. There's a language to it. Falling in love with that language will fix your health. And sometimes, falling in love with that language will help you fix other people's health. Because they meet you, they get like the essence of who you are, and they want to be a part of that, right? They want to follow that. Not always. Sometimes people need, the fear of worsening. Sometimes people need a cookie, right? Sometimes people need encouragement. But sometimes people need a doctor that looks the part. A doctor that's healthy. A doctor that they'd be willing to follow in the lifestyle footsteps of, because they know that they'll end up in that same position as the doctor. See, this is really important. I think it's understated. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. Like, I mean, can you say this? Fit people have more fun in this culture. They just do. They do. Right? And it's not politically correct to say that. And it's what reality is, though. Ask me how I know. I've been fit. I've been fat. I'm telling you, in my experience, fit people have more fun in this culture. Okay? And part of it is because of the response that you get from the people you interact with on a daily basis. If people put you on a pedestal, your interactions with them tend to go better. This is Michael Jordan leading by example. This is Michael Jordan leading without saying anything. Right? There's part of the documentary here where he loses in the playoffs. Just gets absolutely destroyed, beat up by Detroit. And they're famous, the Detroit Pistons were famous for knocking people around and push them out of the lane when he drive there. So their thing was, anytime Michael Jordan comes into the lane, put him on his butt. Put him on the floor. Make it happen. Right? So Bulls lost the series, and Pistons go on to win championship, and the Bulls are like, what? Bulls are like, what are we going to do? Right? They're all scheduling vacations and stuff, and Michael Jordan calls his personal trainer, and the guy's like, yeah, tough game, buddy. What do you want to do? And Jordan's like, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. I'll see you then. Right? He started working the next day because he knew that they lacked a fundamental physicality in order to beat the Detroit Pistons. And so what did they do for the next 6 times they faced them? Destroyed them. Absolutely destroyed them. And so one of the big things that I got out of this documentary is Jordan's teammates, to a man, said sometimes he was mean. Sometimes he was fun to be around. Right? But you better believe that he never asked me to do something that he wasn't willing to do himself. I'm telling you, the art in functional medicine, it's that. It's that. You have to be willing to do more than you say. Okay? Like, you get that? I hope you get that. If you're on social media, this is a huge problem. Okay? There are so many people with so many opinions, but yet you're willing to read their opinion, but you don't know anything about them, so the opinion has no value. The opinion has no value. How do you bring value to an opinion? Results. Results. Where's the first place that people are going to look for results? You. So that is the biggest part, the biggest layer of art in functional medicine, in my opinion, is you and your results. The ability to lead without saying anything. If you have that down, if that's your foundation, the ability to lead without saying anything, then the words you speak, and when you give a patient a cookie, and when you inspire somebody and encourage them, now your words have weight, they have meaning. Right? But if you flip it upside down and it's all words with no result, man, it's a rough spot to be in. All right, so take that to heart. If you're irritated or offended by what I said, you probably flipped it upside down. All right? You probably flipped that hierarchy upside down. So the results got to be there first. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thank you for listening to Nutrition Hero Podcast. Blessings.